we do with boards is valid whether you're leading volunteers or you're leading a board. So a bit about the agenda today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. For those of you who don't already know who I am or know anything about me, I'll give you a brief idea of what that's all about. We're going to talk about recruitment and onboarding of new board members. We'll talk about retention of your current board members and succession planning for when you can't retain them. And then we'll have a question and answer period at the end. So about me, I'm Karen. I've been involved in the not-for-profit world for well over 25 years, not counting straight volunteer work. So I've been leading volunteers. I've been serving on boards for over 25 years. At one point, I had 20 plus people reporting directly to me, and they had 80 plus reporting to them, and we were all volunteers. So I started my volunteer journey back when I was 11, calling bingo at my grandmother's care home, and that lit a fire in me. The thankfulness and appreciation I received for doing such a simple thing lit a fire and made me a lifelong volunteer and got me involved in the not-for-profit sector. So that's a little bit about me. Basically, I've served on boards for many years. I've been presidents of boards. So yeah, basically been there, done that. So recruiting and onboarding is the thing that tends to bring the most attention. That's where a lot of the focus is how do we get people in? A few tips before we dive into it is have a standardized process. This is how we bring people on. This is how we recruit. This is how we onboard. This is how we retain. Have that set and don't deviate from it. I have seen problems happen because someone on the board has a personal agenda and they start bringing people on and they stack the board. I was recently asked to mediate an AGM because there was that kind of thing. The board had grown from 7 people to 17, all because they wanted to push a particular agenda. I didn't actually mediate it. It turned out they actually needed a lawyer to mediate that one. So I said, okay, I'm getting out of here. But this is the sort of thing that a standardized process can really help with. So know what it takes to bring someone onto the board, what you're looking for, what you think, what the setup is. And if you have that, it'll make it a lot easier. And we'll go through some of that farther on. Another thing you might want to think about is who can step into a particular role. So for example, you have to have been a vice president or chaired a committee to be president of the board, or you have to have a financial background to be the treasurer, for example. So have those ideas in place before you start trying to recruit. So when you start recruiting, first, before you even go out looking for people, you need to know who you want. So who are the people that you're looking for? Skills and abilities are kind of the first thing people think about. Do you have a bachelor degree in this or that or the other thing? Skills and abilities skills are important, but they're not vital. Yes, if you're a treasurer, you should have some financial background, and the bigger the organization, the more important that becomes. But generally, it's attitude that drives what you need. If you can find somebody who is enthusiastic, reliable, and willing to learn, you have a good board member, because the skills themselves can be taught. Now, like I said, if you need someone with a financial background or a lawyer, for example, yeah, you can't teach that. But if you're looking between 2 people, choose the one with attitude, even if they have the same skills. Do they fit the culture or don't they? Or should they? A lot of people they try and find people who fit the culture, because when you fit the culture, everybody gets along. And that can be helpful. It can also be harmful. So you have to balance that. There is a lot more value in having a respectful argument over something than it is to have a bunch of people cheerleading, because that makes you question things. It makes you rethink how things are done, why things are done, and it can actually clarify things for you. So try and come up with, when you're building your board, try and find at least one disruptor. They have to be respectful. And if those arguments turn personal, you've got to shut it down really fast. But think about having someone, in the book Transforming Nokia, the chair of Nokia wrote a book called Transforming Nokia, and he said they had a position in their the red team who looked for problems. That was their job. They had a whole group of people. You can have just one person who questions everything and looks for the downside of things. Edward de Bono used to call it black hat thinking. Just someone who looks for the problems in things. And you don't want to have someone who's down, but somebody who questions things. Because when you question the status quo, you can find things that you didn't know were a problem. So to have someone like that on the board, even if they don't fit the culture, is sometimes really of value, rather than having everyone believe the same thing. So sometimes you need people who fit the culture. Sometimes it's good to have a disruptor. Equity, diversity, inclusion, that's a challenge on most boards that I've seen. Take a look around your board. See who is there and who isn't. And even if someone is there, are they speaking up? You need more than just you need more than the skin color or the wheelchair or whatever. You need their minds. You need their thoughts and ideas, not just the fact that they're there. If they're there and not saying anything, that's just tokenism. So make sure that you recruit people for their ideas, for their worldviews. So take a look at your board, see where the gaps are. I've been on boards that were 100% women, which is fine, but it's still not diverse. You need as many diverse angles as are. It's that old story you may have heard about the people with sight impaired who were trying to decide what an elephant was, right? And one got hold of the trunk and said, oh, well, an elephant is very much like a snake. And one got hold of the tail and said, well, an elephant's a lot like a rope. And someone felt the side and said, oh, well, it's a lot like a wall. And if you just take those one individual views, you don't have any idea at all what an elephant looks like. But when you put all those ideas together, you get a better idea. Maybe not a perfect idea, but a better idea. So the more you can bring in of different experiences and different worldviews, the stronger your board will be, because you'll see gaps that you wouldn't otherwise see. You'll see barriers that are preventing people from using your program, perhaps. So think about that. When you're building your board, focus on lived experience. Lived experience is way more important than any kind of university degree or anything else. If they've had lived experience, they can help you. So work on that. The rest of the board, have a mix of big picture thinkers and detail-oriented people, of abstract thinkers and concrete thinkers. Try and get as many different ways of thinking as well as experiences. Again, the more rounded your board is, the stronger it'll be. Okay, so I want you to take a moment right now and think about your board and the how it's put together. What are the gaps? Do you have systems in place for bringing people in? What are does your board look like your community? If you're serving a specific community, are there representatives of that community on your board? So think about that. I want you to take a minute now, and I want you to list any gaps that you see in your board, anything that you would like, that your board could be stronger if they had X. I'm going to give you a minute now. So the question that's probably coming into your mind now is, okay, I know who I need, but how do I find them? So everybody is looking for board members or trying to find board members. So how do we find these people that we realize that we need? Well, the first one is you need to create postings. Again, before you go out, have an idea of what the you know who you're looking for. Now you need to do some thinking about why would they come to you? So create posts that, number one, avoid the desperation plea. Please, desperation never sells. If you say we need people, that kind of scares people off. So tell them about the mission. Tell them what difference they can make by being part of your organization, by being part of your board. Be honest about the time and effort that it takes. I've seen it happen so often where people say, oh, it's only an hour once a month, because that's how long the meeting takes. But you have to belong to a committee, or there's fundraisers, or there's this or that. So have a good idea, first of all, how much time it really takes, and then be upfront about that. That's why a lot of boards have churn, is people come on with a certain expectation, and then they realize that it's very, very different when they actually get on the board. So try and be as honest and clarify that as you can. Specify whether it's okay if they're remote or whether they have to be in person. Like, where do you want these people? If it's all online, you can bring in someone from England or from India to your board. But if they have to actually do in-person work, you'll want to have someone more local, so within your community or within your province. So think about that. Where do you want them to be from? Do they need to be there some of the time, or can it be fully remote? But focus on the mission and the cause, because that's what people are wanting to do. What purpose are they going to serve by being on your board? Where to post? There's all sorts of places. You can post online, and there's tons and tons of places online you can post. Charity Village is a good one. They will post volunteer positions and board positions for free. So just set up an account with them. And there are, I have a whole resource sheet of places you can post, both online and in person, or not in person, bulletin boards, like just poster boards. If you're interested, you'll get my email afterwards. Send me an email and I'll send you a copy of that resource sheet. But public service announcements in your local, if you want someone in your local community, go to your radio station. They'll post things like that for free as well. Just looking for a board member to help feed the hungry, or whatever your cause is, and then put that out there. Public bulletin boards, I mean, just this basic, go into the coffee shop and put a poster up. Those still work. They're hard to do because they take time, but they are still effective to some extent. But probably the best way is a direct outreach. It's find people and talk to them. Right? Think about people you know who would fit this profile that you've built. People who are big picture thinkers, or who are women if you have an all-male board, or someone with wheelchairs. Think about who you know or where those people would be. So for example, if you wanted people of color on your board, maybe you could go to a local immigration center and talk to them. Say, we're looking for people with this experience from the BIPOC community. Is there someone here who would be interested? So think about areas like that. There's an extra value to doing a direct outreach like that rather than posting things, and that's first of all, it's targeted. You can pick an individual person rather than a wide screen. You can pick an individual person, and you can have a conversation with them, and you could tell them things, and if they have questions, you can answer them. If they have concerns about things, you can address them. So a direct outreach is a lot better, and you can build relationships before they even come on the board. There was a position I was trying to fill for a client recently. They had open board positions, and we had put posts out, and we had done this and not really had any luck. And I had been at a chamber I went to a chamber function, and I started talking with someone. I said, you know, you would make a really good fit for this. And they became the board member that they were looking for. So direct outreach tends to be the most effective, but you have to be willing to talk to people who are a little bit different than yourself. Okay, so you're talking to someone now. What do you say to them to convince them to join? What are the things that will make them feel that they want to be part of your board? First of all, tell them what they bring. Tell them the benefits that they have. I had a talk with a young woman fairly recently. She's now on the board of a board that I'm the president of. And she said, well, I don't have anything. What could I bring to a board? She said, it sounds really interesting, but what could I bring? And I said, first of all, everybody else on the board is 50 plus, right? So you bring a youthful knowledge that we just don't have. You see the world from a different angle. And many of our clients are young. So you have a closer connection to them than we do. And then I talked about her experiences from Zimbabwe, which is where she came from, and the different lived experiences that she had. And she got this glow. You could just see her get happier at the idea she had all these talents, or the benefit of being her all of a sudden became apparent. So tell them what they bring, why they would be a good fit for your board. And then tell them what you offer them. And this is the part that a lot of people forget, is they keep telling about, yeah, we need you, and they start into that desperation plea again. Tell them what you offer. Tell them, hey, we'll teach you parliamentary procedures. You'll learn how to run a meeting. You'll be a leader. This is something huge you can put on your resume. Excuse me, right? All of the things. You can learn to organize a fundraising event. You can do what are the things that your board offers, the skills that someone can learn by being on your board, and tell them about it. Because people love to learn. People want to learn. especially if you're trying to get young people on. They're looking for leadership and learning opportunities, and you've got it. You can give it to them, but you have to let them know that you have them. And finally, tell them about the impact that they can make by helping your organization. What difference in their community, in the world, can they serve by doing this? People want purpose in their lives. People want the opportunity to make a difference in the world. And you're offering that. Tell them about it. Tell them what difference they can make and get them inspired and enthusiastic about it. Okay? So I want you to take a moment now and think about who you could approach. Think about who or where you can approach and what you would say to them. What would you bring, or what could your organization offer to a person? So take a minute now, please, and think about who you would like to approach and what you can offer them.
Oh.
Okay, so now we'll talk about onboarding them. So you want to when you bring someone new on, you want to set them up for success. You want to make it easy for them to start contributing right away and feeling really comfortable in what they're doing. And the first part of that, of course, is formal training. And you won't need to have formal training for every board member, but for the secretary, for the treasurer, for if you have specific roles that have specific skills, you'll want to do actual formal training and get them up to speed on that. Have them role shadow, especially if you're and this will affect things later when we get into the succession planning. But every key role on your board should be role shadowing someone else. Someone else should be following them and being mentored by them so that they can learn each thing. And so regular support and mentoring, and this is for every board member that comes on. Have someone assigned to contact the new member and say, how are things going? Do you have any questions? How are you feeling? Are you comfortable? Is anything making you not want to be there? Is there anything that is offending you? Some comment that may have offended you that people don't realize? What sort of thing can we do that way to try and keep you happy? So have someone set up, either one person per new member if you have a bunch of new members coming on, or you can have that as a role. Is one of your board members automatically reaches out to every new member and helps make them comfortable and answers questions and gets them up to date. Mentoring is huge. Having someone, especially in a board position where there isn't that much formal training, having someone that they can ask questions of so they can learn the culture and learn the how things run is huge. Even such things as, okay, how do I make a motion again, or when do I have to submit something that I want put on the agenda? All of these things, the sooner that people, if you have someone who's mentoring them, they will learn all of that so much quicker, and they will feel more comfortable and more productive as a member of the board that much sooner. And the sooner you can do that, the more they will feel attached to the board, and it'll make them feel more comfortable and, yeah, more committed to the board. Okay. So now we're going to go on, there we go. We're going to go on to the retention and succession planning parts of this. I do want to clarify that retention isn't something you do. It's a result of all the other things that you do. If you do everything else well, retention will happen in 90% of the cases. Succession planning is for those times when the unexpected happens, when somebody does have to leave. And you want to be planning about that, not just reacting to it when it happens. So how do you keep a board member? How do you keep someone committed and continuing on? And the first one, just like with any other volunteer, is appreciation. Tell them how often, tell them that you appreciate them. Be all the different things that you would do for a regular volunteer. You would informal thank yous. Tell them, thank them every shift. Thanks for the work you do. Thanks for standing up and doing this for us. Thanks for chairing this committee. Thanks for coming to the meeting, right? Thanks for participating. And then tangible thank you. If there's some way that you can thank them, I mean, you can't give them financial type things or things that cost money, that there's a conflict of interest there, but you can do things like be a job reference for somebody, or let them be involved in a learning experience that they wouldn't get otherwise. So what ways can you thank them in that way? And then public acknowledgement. Thank them at the AGM in front of everybody. Make sure all your board members are posted up on your website. Just ways of saying thank you to your board members. Just like any volunteer, appreciation is the air that volunteers breathe, right? And the same with board members. They need to be appreciated. The second way is building relationships. If you are friends with your board members, or at least have admiration and respect for them, and they feel that admiration and respect, those kind of relationships really, they tie people together. They kind of weave it into a strong cloth. If you can do that, build those strong relationships as much as possible. I mean, you can't be friends with everybody, and that's fine, but try and think of ways that you can really show your respect and appreciation for everyone, and build those relationships, because that'll make it strong. Your processes, streamline your processes, make things easy for people. Alexandra, you're unmuted and we can hear your background, just so you know. Thank you. Streamline your processes. Think of ways that that you can make things easier for your board members. Look at what you do and ask, does this really need to be done? Or if this does need to be done, can we do it in a way that's faster and easier? Because board members tend to have day jobs, they tend to have other things they need to do. And so having things go smoothly always helps. Don't ask for things that aren't really needed, and question the status quo. Always question the status quo. Why do we do things? Why are we doing it this way? It's not a question of throwing things out, but by questioning it, you find out what you really do need. And if you do need it, now you know why you need it. You have this kind of reinforcement for what's important. You can explain it. And it helps you determine what isn't needed or what parts of things aren't needed. So questioning the status quo of how you do things is always a benefit. In the board where I'm the president, every meeting we bring up one process. It's just part of our agenda. We bring up one process that we question. And that's just part of the agenda. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about our succession planning. Is it working? Should we have limited term roles? Like, should no one serve longer than 2 years in a particular role or whatever? And we question it. We may decide, yes, we do like it the way it is, and that's fine. And now we're all solid in it. And sometimes we decide, no, this could be changed and made better. But by questioning things in a non-judgmental way, it's just, okay, this is part of what we do. Is every meeting we question something. And we've become far more efficient as an organization because we do that. So that's one thing. So question the status quo and look closely at your processes. And finally, look at your meetings. I believe, and I have no scientific background or facts for this at all, though maybe I should. I think the majority of board members leave because of poorly run meetings. I bet everyone here can say that they've been to a meeting that went vastly over time, or that they stayed there for the full hour and got nothing done, or there was so much arguing and fighting that it was just a misery to be there. I'm sure all of us have had that or different experiences where a meeting really was nasty to be in and really frustrating. Things like that, when those are the things that drive board members away fastest, because you spend a lot of time in meetings, and if they're not done well, they can be a disaster for you. So with meetings, stay on time. If nothing else, stay on time. If you have an hour for your meeting and it always runs over, tell people, okay, we're going to have 2-hour meetings now. We just have to have 2-hour meetings. And then if it only goes an hour and a half, everybody's thrilled. Whereas before, if you'd said, okay, the meeting's an hour and it went an hour and a half, everybody's upset. Still an hour and a half, but one makes them happy and one makes them upset. So manage expectations. Choose a time that makes sense for the length of your meeting. Prepare an agenda and appoint times to those agenda. We're going to discuss this for X time, and keep to those times. That'll help you stay on track time-wise, but it also means that everything that needs to be discussed will be. And if what needs to be discussed looks like it's going to go over time, rather than just throw it out, table it for the next meeting, or make a decision. Are we going to table the next item for the next meeting and continue this discussion? So figure all of that out, get an agenda that's specified and stick to it. Ensure that everyone has a say. Everybody around the table needs to have the opportunity and feel comfortable speaking up for or against anything that's set on the table. So for example, introverts are often have wonderful ideas, but they may not be comfortable speaking up. So if you see somebody who looks like they're interested, but they haven't said anything, ask right out. Say, hey, do you have any thoughts on this? Right? And when they're invited, they may speak up, whereas they might not feel comfortable interrupting someone else or pushing their way into the conversation, especially if the rest of the board's mostly introverts or extroverts and talking all the time, right? It can be hard for an introvert to put themselves into a conversation. So make sure when you see somebody who's not contributing that you ask. Know when to let the talk kind of branch out and when you need to rein it in and swing it back. It's important sometimes to start brainstorming for ideas and letting things go. But if it starts getting off into the weeds, then you need to rein it back. The board I'm on is for the Kamloops Therapeutic Riding Association, and we had a board meeting a few months ago and talking about growing the size of our herd. herd of horses? Where should we add more horses to it? And that's a strategic decision, and we needed to discuss it, and we did, and we decided, yes, we're gonna bring on a couple more horses, and then the discussion kind of went off sideways on what kind of horses are we going to get? Should we get fjords? Should we get warm bloods? Should we get? And that is an operational decision and has nothing to do with the board. And that conversation looked like it was going to go for a long, long time and stop everything else in its tracks. So we had to rein that back and say, okay, that is the executive director's decision. It's not a board concern. What kind of, knowing we have to grow the herd is our decision. What kind of horses isn't. So we have to judge when to let things go and when to rein them back. And we'll be talking, I keep saying we, and we'll cover that a little bit later, because you're probably thinking, well, I'm not the president, or I'm not this. This is everybody's decision. Everybody's job is to deal with all of these things. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But those are the four things that you need to focus on to make sure that you keep your board members happy and committed. Is show them appreciation, build relationships with them, streamline your processes, and get your meetings well run. So what happens if you can't keep a board member? If your board member does leave? Well, the first one is don't panic. The retention is overrated. Don't worry about it if somebody leaves. Every time one person leaves, that gives you the opportunity to bring in new ideas and new thoughts. So don't worry about it. Yes, you want consistency. You don't want a ton of people to leave, but don't think it necessarily a bad thing if somebody does have to leave. So don't panic about it. And you won't need to panic because you will have planned ahead for it. Set up ways to make things, your recruitment easier. We talked about that earlier. If you've got this all set up and you know what needs to be done and how to do it and where to go and who you're looking for, it's easier to go out right away and find somebody if somebody decides they're going to leave. In many cases, having term limits on your board members or on certain key roles in your board members is a good thing, because it keeps that fresh blood coming in and the fresh ideas. Having someone role shadowing, all the key roles, like I said before, should have someone being shadowed, or shadowing, so that if one of those key people leave without much warning, you have somebody who's ready to step in or almost ready to step in. So have this sort of thing planned out and have people set and ready to go for when the unexpected happens and somebody does leave. And you're it. All of these things that I've been talking about throughout this entire presentation is your decision, is your responsibility, is the responsibility of every board member. It's not just the president's role or the chair's role, it's everybody's role. If you're sitting in a meeting and the talk's going off on a tangent and you're getting frustrated because we still have 3 more things to get through on the agenda in the next 20 minutes, speak up. Say, this is a great conversation, but I think we've lost focus and we should continue on with whatever we were talking about. And most people are actually really happy. They lose track of where they are in a conversation. And when you bring it up, they tend to be quite thankful and say, oh, you're right. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Or we'll take that outside after the meeting or whatever. Most people are really good because people want the meeting to end on time and they want it to be productive. So be comfortable speaking up. Be comfortable recruiting. If you see somebody who would be a good fit for your organization and it matches the criteria you guys are looking for, approach them. Don't feel that this all has to happen by the recruitment committee or by the chair or by whoever. Everybody does it. Everybody makes sure that other people have an opportunity to speak, that the diversity, equity, inclusion is dealt with well. If you see a problem, if you want to question a process, speak up. You're on the board because you're a leader. Even if you're not the president of the board or you've only been there for 6 months, you are a leader and you need to show that. And the way you show that is by dealing with the things that we've been talking about here and making decisions that, yes, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to bring things back to where they should be. Now, be careful with how you do that. Be respectful. Always, always, always be respectful. So don't say, this is a dumb idea, we need to do this, or can you guys please shut up? and so we can get back onto the agenda. But just be respectful and gently move things along. You're a leader. This is what you do. This is what you do as a leader, is lead things, even if the people you are leading are your peers or the people above you. That you can lead people all around you. It doesn't have to be people that report to you. So think of that. You are it. When you're on the board, you take control when you see things going sideways. Okay? And that about covers it. Now, are there any questions? I'm gonna get Dean to he's been monitoring the chat. So Dean, if you let me know if there's any questions. We're doing pretty well for time, so.
Yes, indeed, no questions yet.
Okay. If we want, you can, if you're interested, you can just unmute yourself and ask a question directly. Like I said, we've got the time to do it. So if you'd like to, I'd like to hear it.
I'd like to ask Karen, the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act introduced some interesting changes, some of which may have an impact on some of the ideas that you shared. Okay. And the one that comes to mind is, as I explained to my board in the Air Force Association, members could no longer elect specific people by name to specific offices by title, that they're just electing to the whole board of governors, and the board of governors are the ones who decide amongst themselves who's going to do what job.
Right.
Does that have an impact on some of the things that you're sharing?
It can do. If you do your elections, actually most of the boards that I've dealt with have already decided amongst themselves before they put someone up for election. So if you elect your president at the AGM, for example, they will only put one name forward for election into that role. And that's how a lot of boards had gotten around that kind of thing in the past. But I think that's a good idea, because generally the board has a clearer idea of who has the skills and attitude to do that role well. But again, you have to be careful. I'm thinking back to this organization that had the mediation issue, where one person with an agenda tried to stack the board. In that case, it's sometimes better to have more control over it. But it certainly does. And you would send me that report, I would really be appreciative.
Sure, I can do that. Alex has a question.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry about earlier. I was like playing with my speaker because I wasn't getting any sound and I must have unmuted. So I'm really
By
sorry.
accident. No problem. I figured it was something simple.
So I think it's just that when you vote people in, they're just voted in as directors, but I think you could probably have those, like, because PAVRO's got the same thing. Like I was putting roles on our elections, right?
Right.
But in fact, I realized, oh, we're not supposed to do that. We just put director, but not a specific role. But they may be in a role, but you just it's going to be formally agreed on by the board. But it's so I think, yeah, I think you're right. You do want to have, especially when you have a very operational board. You don't want to. You want to make sure that you do have the right skill set in place, and you are also avoiding those one issue candidates because that can be
Yes.
problematic. But my question was, you were talking about role shadowing. So are you thinking that if you, before you've joined the board, that you might shadow a board member, like, and come to board meetings? Like, how does that work?
You could, or the way I was thinking of it is you have a treasurer, and your treasurer may be planning on moving or whatever, and you
Yeah.
take another board member who's interested in the role, and they just kind of shadow the person. How do you do this? They watch them as they put the budget together, or the proposed budget together, things like that.
Okay.
Try and learn that.
Yeah.
But it is a good idea if you want someone on your board, or you're trying to elect someone to the board, to bring them into a board meeting or two, so they get a feel for it and find out if they're comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
part of this system of bringing someone on is,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. One thing that I learned, because PAVRO, we held our conference last year and we had a lawyer come to talk about governance. And one of the things she was saying was that you want to be careful about who attends the board meetings, and you make sure that nobody who is like, everybody has to be a voting member on the board. You can have visitors, but they can't be regular people, non-voting members on the board.
Okay.
Because all board members are legally liable for all the decisions that are made. If there's anything that goes sideways, anyone who's in attendance at those board meetings will be assumed to have voted with the board, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
there's just some interesting, but I agree with you. I think that's a really nice idea to have them come to 1 or 2 meetings, but
Right.
you just want to avoid having regular people coming to board meetings who actually don't have a vote. That was my take-home message from that workshop.
Yeah. About really, of the boards that I've been part of, really the only non-voting person who shows up is usually the executive director.
Right.
And they need to be part of that. But yeah, that's a good thought. I hadn't thought of the legal ramifications of that.
Oh
I
my
didn't
God.
realize that if you're not a voting member, that you could still be liable.
Yeah,
That's good
if you're
information
showing
to
up on
have.
a regular basis. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, like every time I go to a governance workshop run by a lawyer, I learn something new and I go, oh my God.
Things become so much scarier, don't they?
I know. The more you know, the more careful you need to become. Thank you. That was great.
Okay. Is
So
there
Vanessa,
anyone else?
Vanessa is asking in the chat, do you have any tips on getting more engagement from current board members?
Basically what we've talked about before. Now, I'm not sure what exactly you mean by more engagement. Are you wanting them to commit more time besides just meetings, or are they just disconnected and they just sit through the meetings and don't contribute? If they're sitting through the meetings and not contributing, then you want to just draw them out, ask them questions. Don't let them just sit there. If you want them to be more involved and joining committees and things like that, you have to recruit them, if you'd like. Tell them the benefits to them, tell them the skills that you bring, the reason you're asking them in particular, and what benefit they get out of it and how it advances your mission. The same things you would say to somebody you want to bring onto the board altogether. Treat them the same way if you wanted them to serve on a particular committee. do that kind of thing, and that might get them re-involved if they are still enthusiastic about the organization. If they're really starting to withdraw, then maybe you need to start looking for a successor for them, because they may not be sticking around. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've just had a hard time. Our board's been around a long time, and we are now just adding in new people. But even just from like our president, she's very, I don't know, like, I guess she's busy in her real life and is not overly involved. And a lot of the board members are noticing that she's quite removed from her role. And even with like fundraising, we're tied to another organization, and the clinicians are doing a lot more of that fundraising rather than the board, who should be helping fundraise for the organization. And so we're kind of doing a lot more as clinicians than we should be.
Right.
And so I think we're just trying to see, like, this is something the board should be doing, and like, how do we encourage them to do it? But when we do, we're not really getting any anyone like
response.
really, yeah, exactly.
So are you on the board yourself?
I'm actually one of the clinicians that provide the services for the board.
Right. Okay. Is there someone in any group? There can be two different leaders. One is the leader with the title president, and the other one is just the one that everybody follows. And if you watch interactions and somebody proposes something, everybody's heads will turn to one person, and that's the real leader of your board. And if there's someone that is interested and involved, talk to them, and then start getting them and to explain your concerns with them. And that will maybe start things moving, because they're the ones that people will follow. Okay, not necessarily the person with the title.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That helps.
Yeah, no, I think that's similar steps to where we currently are and what we've done. So yeah, thank you. I'm glad to know we're on the right path.
If I can help in any way, just get in touch with me. You'll get my email later, so reach out.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone else?
Karen, Carrie Astles has a question. Do you have any Coles Notes suggestions for proper board etiquette?
Ooh, I don't, but I can get you some.
That would be amazing.
Huh?
I said that would be amazing. I'm in a similar situation, I think, to Vanessa, in struggling with a board that they don't understand proper board etiquette, and they do have an unofficial leader, and all of the heads turn to me. And I am not the executive director. It is our volunteer association board at the hospital. So as the coordinator of volunteer programs, I am the staff liaison, and I'm on the board as a non-voting member, and everyone turns to me and expects that I'm going to know the answer and tell them what to do. And I'm trying really hard to empower them to take things on themselves, and it's not happening.
Okay.
So I do leave every board meeting feeling extremely mentally frustrated, because it all comes back to me, and I end up being the one to speak. I end up being the one that comes away with a huge to-do list, and I'm not even on the board.
Right.
So trying to figure out what tools I can give them that is going to help them to understand their role a little bit better, because everything I've tried over the last number of years, it's not working. So I'm just looking for a little bit of guidance that way.
Sure. I'll find a board etiquette cheat sheet for you. Again, send me an email and I'll reach out and I'll get that to you. That's not something that's a whole workshop in itself. So I'll see what I can find and get it to you, Carrie.
Carrie, so who's the chair of this board? Because
That
it
is
sounds
such
like they're not taking their leadership.
So
you know
I
what
think my chair is very similar to Vanessa's chair. She is extremely busy.
Yeah.
She is volunteering as a patient and family advisor at the hospital. She's probably on about 8 to 10 committees.
Oh, okay.
Plus she's also
Overextended.
the chair of another organization here in town for their board. And she is naturally just somebody who has very much ADHD tendencies. So she's all over the place all the time, just because of that's her personality. That's who she is, on top of having all of the things that she does. So her ability to focus when she comes into a room and give everything to the board is a challenge for her every single month. And we've tried really hard. Her term is coming up. And so in a couple of weeks, we have a new chair stepping in. So I'm really hopeful that things are going to change a little bit. But what I'm finding is we're bringing new people onto the board and they're getting really frustrated because that is the leadership that they're under. And so we're working so hard to get new people and they're going, why am I here? Because this is just frustrating. So I want to try and stop that. So we're not constantly recruiting and have a better experience for people.
Yeah, because I feel like people are seeing you as the leader, the kind of, you know, that, and you don't actually have a role on that board. So you may want to consider backing yourself out, like weaning yourself. So
trying. I've been really trying, Alex. It's not as easy as it sounds.
I have a suggestion. You say you're getting a new chair of your board coming on in a couple of weeks. What about having a governance workshop for the board? Like just start that term off by everyone learning what the role is.
And I think that's a fantastic idea, and definitely one of the things that I've got in the back of my mind for things that they should be doing at the very beginning of this board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of every term would probably be good until they get this into their heads. So it is now 1 minute to the top of the hour. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to contact me. Here's my information, my email address, my phone number, my website. If there's a contact form on my website. Reach out with any questions you have, and I will get in touch, and I'll answer them directly that way. Thank you guys very, very much for interacting and listening to me ramble for an hour. I know I packed a lot of information in a very short period of time. So if I can help in any way, please do get in touch with me. So Dean, back to you.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was a brilliant corralling of the key issues I think all of us confront as volunteers: recruiting, retention, awarding, acknowledging, succession planning. That was a really nice way of delivering on all those important issues. So thank you very much, and I'll be in touch. And that's a wrap for our webinar year for our members at PAVRO. Thanks so much for joining us today. It was great seeing everyone. And I have copied the chat and I've recorded the video, and we'll be sending that out to everybody, and especially responding to your requests for information that Karen has offered to share with you. Have a great day.